Hello and welcome to another standard gameplay video on the official MTG Arena channel. Today we're taking a look at Mono-Red Aggro, updated with Phyrexia, all will be 1, which introduced this little fella. Sawblade Scamp is a 1-mana 1-1 with haste, and says whenever we cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on it. We can tap, remove an oil counter to deal 1 damage to each opponent. So the Scamp can simply attack for a bit of damage early on, then once the board stalls out and it can no longer attack, we can just sit back and start pinging the opponent, enabled by our non-creature spells, which includes all our burn spells, but also some of our enchantments like Kumano and Mechanized Warfare, which will also put an oil counter on it, and Warfare especially has great synergy with a Scamp, as it will now deal 2 damage as opposed to 1, and the more Warfares the better, as we'll get more damage for each one. And then the rest of our deck is kind of your typical Mono-Red Aggro. I've experimented with more of the oil counter payoff cards, such as Fuseling, especially nice in combination with Free From Flesh, as you can potentially hit the opponent for 5 points of trample damage on turn 2, and then still have a 3-1 trampling Scamp left over. Problem with Free From Flesh is that it can be a bit inconsistent. If the opponent has a lot of removal, you may end up without any creatures to pump, whereas burn spells are a lot more reliable. And then the Flamestoker was also potentially a payoff worth looking at, as we can cast a few non-creature spells to add oil counters, and it can eventually refresh our hand. The problem I found with Flamestoker is that it doesn't attack as reliably as some of our other creatures, and the opponent often ends up killing it before we get a chance to refresh our hand, so that one also didn't make the cut. But I'm still playing 4 copies of the Scamp, which replaced Voldaren Epicure for me in this list. Epicure has its advantages as well, deals damage as soon as it enters, which is almost the same as haste, but can also ignore opposing blockers, so Epicure wins there. And then the Blood Token in the late game also has its advantages when we can discard a land to dig for additional burn spells, but the Scamp has the advantage of maybe repeatedly dealing damage if we can string together enough non-creature spells, so we're going with the Scamp for now. And then the rest of our deck has plenty of burn spells, as we mentioned, with Play with Fire and Lightning Strike, as well as 4 copies of End the Festivities, which scales very nicely with our Mechanized Warfare, as potentially a sweeper against opposing creature decks, at its best against a deck like Blue-Eyed Soldiers, which tends to go wide with a bunch of smaller creatures. And then a Kumano, a staple in pretty much any red deck, as well as Monastery Swiftspear, which is too good to ignore. And then a Phoenix Chick, another nice evasive 1-drop with haste that can repeatedly get some damage in, can also maybe return from our graveyard if we manage to go wide enough. And what better card to go wide than Squee, the Dubious Monarch, making a 1-1 hasty goblin that's also attacking whenever it attacks, and can also be brought back from the graveyard for 4 mana if we can exile 4 other cards, which is not too difficult when we cast a bunch of cheap burn spells. And then Reckless Impulse, another source of card advantage, exiling the top 2 cards of our library, and until the end of our next turn we may play those cards. And then a mana base also has a creature land with Mishra's Foundry. Don't want to go overboard on Mishra's Foundry, since we still need a lot of red mana for our deck to function, as you can tell from all these 1-drops that don't have a generic mana cost, but it can be a nice tool in the more mid-rangey and control matchups as a way to keep up the pressure. Can also benefit from a Mechanized Warfare being an artifact creature. And then a Crucible can also make some hasty 1-1s. These aren't artifacts nor red creatures, so they don't get the extra damage from Warfare, but some hasty 1-1s can still make the difference. And then just 17 basic mountains. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand is keepable. Definitely better against a creature deck where End the Festivities could be great, especially alongside Warfare. Missing some creatures of our own to apply pressure with. But at least we can hold off early creatures, and then Impulse can hit our land drops to get our Warfare down. Could also point this upstairs to scry into a land. Not sure if I'm quite that desperate. Found a Phoenix Chick. So I'll play this now, and then next turn maybe Impulse. Farmhand points towards a more mid-rangey white deck. They could have answers to our enchantment as well. So, yeah, I think I'm forced to Impulse to keep hitting my land drops, which we didn't find. Ossification exiles Phoenix Chick. And another Impulse, not exactly what we were hoping for, but maybe we'll hit 2 mountains and can still play Kumano at least. Okay, so I'll play the old Kumano first before it goes away. And then next turn I could go Swiftspear plus another one. Loran blows up her enchantment, also would have been an answer to Warfare, so I guess it worked out. Alrighty, so Swift Spear into Kumano into End of Festivities looks good. That will clean up the opponent's creatures. Get in for 3. And then we still have the Warfare plus Burn spells in hand. Wandering Emperor can exile Swift Spear.
I hope you're ready to lose.
Still have our Foundry to potentially pressure their Planeswalker.
Judgment is fun.
And the Festivities also damages Planeswalkers for what it's worth. So could go for Warfare and the Festivities. And then hang on to Play with Fire. Although it's not like Emperor's that much of a concern when we can clean it up later. Maybe I just go Warfare and pass. And then hope that the +1 counter from Emperor doesn't make a difference. And then deploying another Warfare lets our Festivities deal 3. Okay, Paragon can eventually get back Loran. So going up to 5 toughness is a bit of a concern. Although between Play with Fire and End of Festivities, we'll still be able to answer it. So I'll take my draw. Did not hit a land, so wouldn't be able to play another Warfare out. But now we can play a Felden as well. So yeah, End of Festivities. Play with Fire Paragon.
I'm never done for good.
And then Felden and Etching get to smash for 6 total. So not bad. Still have our Foundry as a creature land and another Warfare to increase our damage output. Ossification goes after Felden. And another one. Okay, explains why they were so eager to exile our Phoenix chick early on. But there's a Lightning Strike. So if I get in with a Foundry, I don't expect any one-mana interaction. Then we can finish them off with a Lightning Strike, which seems pretty good here. Okay, Loran can blow up Warfare, but 3 damage is still enough. So unless they exile their own Loran to gain life with a Laydown Arms, we should get there, and a farmhand's not going to make a difference. Okay, so plenty of disruption from the white mid-range deck here, but a Lightning Strike will seal the deal. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand isn't bad. Of course, could use a few burn spells, and if we draw a couple more lands we could be flooding out. But yeah, Swift Spear and Kumano are the best 1-drops in the deck. The Scamp may have heard us and shows up here. So sequencing's also interesting, up against turn 1 Swamp, so Cutdown could be in the opponent's hand, in which case going Kumano first has its advantages. Of course, we miss out on the Prowess trigger that way, but we sort of waste the opponent's mana potentially. So let's try this approach. Opponent going for Life of Toshiro. Can gain some life back. Alright, so double Swift Spear is one option. One will get a +1 counter. Scamp doesn't really need a +1 counter to be effective. Although Swift Spear into Kumano also has its advantages, since that way we also make sure we still get a +1 counter on Chapter 2. So maybe we'll try this actually. Get in for 3. And then next turn we can Swift Spear, Scamp, and then Kumano. Bankbuster is totally fine, doesn't block, but our opponent did have a cut down after all. Felden's not bad either. So opponent will be getting a 2-3 next turn, which we may not be able to attack past with our entire team. For now we have to decide who gets a +1 counter, and going triple 1-drop is probably the most efficient this turn. That way next turn Felden will also pick up a +1 counter. And then I think Swift Spear receiving the +1 counter makes more sense. So Scamp into Kumano. Scamp also picks up an oil counter. And attack for 6. And then top decking a Mechanized Warfare would be amazing. Any of our burn spells would be great. And hope our opponent doesn't have a Shieldred. Another cut down kill Swift Spear. Yeah, those have been effective. And Bankbuster draws. Okay, so Felden comes in as a 3-3. So now the question is, do we attack with everyone? Opponent blocks Etching, and then takes 6 down to 6. That may be worth it. And with a card in hand, of course, we could represent a burn spell to finish off Memory, but opponent's going to block almost no matter what here. Opponent falls to 6, and then I should play out my land in case we string together some more card draw and need more mana in play. Trespasser is unfortunate, that can gain life. And crew Bankbuster. And just to land the draw. Yeah, this is where flooding is a major concern. So I don't have any good attacks, besides Felden, which just runs into a Bankbuster but can go digging for some more action, I suppose. And then could also draw into an End of Festivities, which can finish off Bankbuster. Also don't want to pass and let it switch to nighttime without casting anything. Okay, did find End of Festivities, that's probably the best we can do here. Could have been reasonable to attack with all in the hopes of finding End of Festivities to finish off Memory. Could have been worth considering. Alright, so we'll pass. Now I'll keep a land in hand in case we need to discard to the Trespasser. Another Life of Toshiro can finish off my Scamp, but our opponent's going to gain 2 instead. And then could activate Scamp before our opponent changes their opinion and kills it. Holding the counters could be useful in case of a Warfare, but I think I'll activate it here. Okay, Squee wasn't bad. Probably still not good enough. Opponent can block it and then exile it with Trespasser. Opponent still has a lot of cards in hand, stuck on 3 lands clearly, so not loving my chances. Edict to make us sack a creature. Well, I guess Scamp has served us well. Opponent back up to 7. They've gained 9 life this game, and then now an Obliterator. Yeah, not a creature we want to attack into necessarily. A double block here is very tempting, but I think our best chance is still keeping our creatures and top decking a Mechanized Warfare. Alright, Reckless Impulse can give us a shot. And we did find a Warfare. Alright, let's go. And an all-out attack doesn't seem too bad here. Even though we'll deal 3 to the Obliterator, we can just sacrifice 3 lands and then still cast Phoenix Chick next turn. So your opponent's at 2. Sack 3 lands. And an Invoke Despair. Okay, sacrifice Squee as my creature, Etching as my enchantments. And then Phoenix Chick can still fly over for 2 damage. So we somehow managed to get there, I think. Even with Trespasser gaining 1 up to 2. Wow, what a game. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand's missing a 2-mana creature to fully leverage Kumano. Can I mulligan this? It's pretty hard to do so. We have a creature land, Impulse for card advantage, and double Lightning Strike on the play. If we draw a creature next turn, our hands would be quite a bit better. So let's hope for that. Alright, just a mountain. So now I probably just want to Impulse to use my mana, since I don't want to fire off Lightning Strike this early in the game. Opponent on an Abzan deck with Briefcase, so they're going big, potentially a 5-color deck. Okay, found another Kumano. And we'll attack for 2. So we've got 8 points of burn in hand. Opponent already trumping. And then Foundry can maybe get a couple attacks in as well. Do I play with fire to scry? Yeah, I think so. Definitely want to bottom lanes. Mechanized Warfare could be a good draw. There it is, although opponent pausing could imply that they have a Leyline Binding in a 5-color deck, makes sense. So, not sure how we want to time this Warfare. I may just want to animate Foundry this turn, as they wouldn't be able to exile my land. And then they might be tempted to Leyline Binding the Etching here. Okay, opponent just takes it, that works too. And then Herd Migration can gain 3. Next turn I can play Warfare and Lightning Strike, potentially dealing 4 damage to a blocker, and then have 2 Etchings hitting for 6 total. Okay, Fable's fine. So their opponent can cast a 2-mana Binding, they're just missing Forests, but they could sack Briefcase to do so. So, yeah, going Swiftspear into Warfare is probably still okay. There's a Leyline Binding, but they had to get rid of the Briefcase at least. And we still have profitable attacks into the Shaman. If our opponent takes 6, they're very close to being dead to double Lightning Strike, so opponent trades. And at least now they're a bit further from potentially casting an Atraxa, which could stabilize them as a 7/7 lifelink. So yeah, we'll see how this game progresses. Drag to wipe the board, that's painful. So Mishra's Foundry will have to get some damage in. Play my land out in case we string together some card draw with Impulse. Don't want to be forced to take out Reflection of Kiki-Jiki. So Foundry is unlikely to get more attacks in. With her opponent at 9, I want them to feel relatively safe here, so they can maybe take a little bit more damage before we double Lightning Strike. Feldon's not bad. So could play Feldon, animate Foundry, offer some trades, and then Feldon can maybe dig for another burn spell. Their opponent takes a 2 from Feldon, so now we're just 1 burn spell away from lethal. Just gotta dodge another Herd Migration gaining a life, or Atraxa will force us to top deck a burn spell next turn. Alright, it's gonna be a briefcase for 2 mana, that's okay. And a land, opponent down to 1 card in hand, so next turn we could still see an Atraxa potentially, and there's a play with fire. So, for all we know, they could still have some instant speed life gain in hand, so I'll try and play it safe. Reflection copies a token, that happens. And double blocks Felden. And we found a land here. So best timing is probably in the opponent's upkeep. That way if they did somehow have a herd migration that they can still gain 3 life with, they wouldn't be able to also cast, let's say, an Atraxa. But I don't want them drawing into one either. Scamp doesn't seem very necessary anymore. And Lightning Strike again. I guess our opponent could sack Briefcase now. That's something I hadn't considered. But they didn't leave up green mana to cycle a herd migration. Not sure if their mana would have worked out in such a way that they could have left up green. Leyline Binding is not going to do anything. And that does it. Sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand will need to pick up a second mountain, but we're pretty well set up to beat some small creatures with double End of Festivities. For now, hit for 1 with a Swift Spear. And a Bankbuster we don't mind seeing. Another Warfare. So, I don't think I should quite Lightning Strike to get the Prowess trigger. Also better to wait until we get the Warfare down. And we might need to take out an opposing Trespasser, for instance. Flash Gorger also worth taking out here. Alright, so it's gonna cost me some life, but I think I still do it now, so we can untap, play Warfare, and not have to worry about a crude Bankbuster. Another Lightning Strike's nice. So we'll get in for 3 here. Mono Black, of course, has some powerful cards, Shieldred being one of them. Although we can take it out with a combination of Lightning Strike and End of Festivities. So take our draw step, since can't quite do it at instant speed. And then, how do we want to sequence? If I just cast End of Festivities and attack, opponent could crew Bankbuster to block Swift Spear, and then by Lightning Striking Shieldred, we trade for both. Don't know if we want to trade for Bankbuster. Alternatively, I can just kill Shieldred, opponent crews Bankbuster before it dies, and then I don't have an attack. Maybe going for End of Festivities, attack is a way to go, and then there's a chance they don't block with the Bankbuster. Alright, opponent's gonna crew. So that happens. And then we'll trade for both here. And then hope to get Squeak going next turn. Invoke Despair could be bad here. Another Shieldred. Yep. Alright, there's another Lightning Strike. So we found another answer. And yeah, better just go for it now. But now we're out of removal spells. Won't be able to beat a third. Flash Gorger, more lifelink. Yeah, opponent definitely came prepared for the red aggro matchup. So Squee doesn't want to attack right now when they can block my 1/1 token and gain 3 life. So I just need to play another Warfare. And then next turn, the tokens can actually attack past a Flash Gorger. But if there's instant speed removal, that's also gonna fall apart. Okay, I think I like Impulse here. Go digging. And then still maybe play Squee afterwards. Okay, play Squee, next turn Impulse. And I'm sure they have removal left in hand. They haven't had a great opportunity to cast Go for the Throat yet. At least we can still bring back Squee. But I'm gonna Impulse first. Shieldred number 3 has arrived. Well, a Lightning Strike now would deal 5 damage, but we've already drawn our fair share, so don't expect to get another one. Scamp doesn't quite do it here. Can get Squee back, and then I'm forced to play defense, and I'm still gonna die to the combination of Shieldred and Fleshgorger. So, yeah, alas. Fleshgorger, Shieldred, and removal is a good combination to beat red deck. Even after we had a pretty good draw with double Warfare, multiple burn spells. GG's. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand is okay, not amazing. No 1-mana creature to play on turn 1. But Felden into Squee, and then got an Impulse to keep digging. Facing an Esper deck of sorts. And Underdog. Okay. Fine to attack into it with Squee, I think. We'll get a 1/1 token in return. Opponent accepts the trade. And we've got them on the back foot at least. Another tap land. And another Underdog. Okay, now we've got a few different options. Could Phoenix Chick attack all out? Opponent can either trade for Felden or block the 1/1, and then we can finish off Underdog with End of Festivities, which I don't hate. Although I do kind of want to preserve Felden, so if they trade for Felden, that would not be ideal. Although if I Impulse now, I may be able to find some more haste creatures I can deploy. And then I can still Phoenix Chick plus Festivities. Okay. Now I probably Phoenix Chick, and then can attack all out. And then if they block Felden, I'll just play Kumano. If they block the 1/1, we can end the Festivities. And then next turn get to Kumano going. That seems fine. Opponent looking through our graveyard. Passes with 4 mana up. Alright, Swiftspear into Kumano. And then the question is whether to play Phoenix Chick or keep up Lightning Strike for potential Wandering Emperor. Holding the Phoenix Chick also has the advantage of getting the +1 counter next turn from Kumano, so I think it's fine to just attack with Lightning Strike up, so we can act accordingly. Could have also waited on Kumano to maybe finish off an Emperor that -2'd. Could have been even better, actually. Alright, just avoid Rent, that's totally fine. In which case, do I Lightning Strike face so we get the Prowess trigger? Kinda like that. So opponent still takes 4, down to 3, and they have a Pain land in their mana base as well. The Fairy can gain some life back, untap a land. So that could be a problem. Currently could bring back Squee, so that seems decent. Would get the +1 counter, so doesn't die to cut down, could still die to Go for the Throat. Alternative is just Scamp plus Phoenix Chick, probably Phoenix Chick getting the +1 counter. And then I could just go face, since opponent's at 5. Yeah, maybe not going for Squee when the opponent could have removal makes sense. And then we even have the mana to get back a Phoenix Chick. if our opponent were to somehow kill one before attackers. Okay, March can gain some life back. Opponent's at 2. And then next turn we'll go for Squee. Opponent goes digging with Teferi. That's a good sign, I guess. Means they don't have the answers in hand already. Farewell would be devastating here, since it would exile Squee or enchantment and everything else. A regular sweeper wouldn't do it, since we can still bring back Squee and get a 2/2 haster. And that does it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand is not particularly exciting, but should be keepable. Alright, got a lot better now. Turn 1 Swiss Spear. Can grow in a multitude of ways. Up against the red-whites. Yeah, happy to play Felden. Think I still play Mountain, since I'm unlikely to want to activate Foundry next turn, and I might need more red mana. Okay, Fable we can take out. Another Felden's a little awkward. But, yeah, we can Reckless Impulse. And then still play with fire. Although, now I might have to play Foundry first, since I may not exile a Mountain. Okay. So we'll still be able to play Phoenix Chick next turn. Get in for 5. Could have also simply played Phoenix Chick and attacked, since trading Feldon's okay when we have a backup. So opponent at 11, Brotherhood's End will wipe the boards, and Feldon gets to go digging. And which one do we like? Wouldn't be able to play Phoenix Chick, Scamp, and Feldon unless we draw land. Kumano could have slightly more upside, since it helps us spread out our threats to potentially play around another sweeper. So I'll grab a Kumano. And then this turn, yeah, wouldn't be able to play everything out, sadly. So probably have to give up on using all my mana, just go Kumano Phoenix Chick. And then our opponent's at 9, we have 6 points of burn in hand, a couple more haste creatures. So we're not in a bad spot. Opponent passing with 5 mana up, probably a Wandering Emperor. Don't want to have Feldon exiled necessarily. Could go for a Swiss Spear. And then I'll still have Play with Fire available. Could also Swiss Spear plus Feldon. And then Swiss Spear first so it picks up a +1 counter. And then we're okay with the trade. Although then our opponent could put +1 counter on Reflection, which is not ideal. So maybe it is just Swiss Spear, attack, and see what happens. Opponent chumps, that's fine. So then we'll just pass with burn spells available. By casting an instant speed burn spell, we could survive another Brotherhood's End. Repair just bringing back Fables, so opponents a Reanimator deck, but they couldn't find their big payoffs yet. So, yeah, could Lightning Strike their face end of turn. And then untap, play Feldon, play with Fire the Token, and that should be game. Alright, so even surviving a Brotherhood's End here, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand is not amazing. A lot of 1-drops, 3 lands is a bit much. No Warfare, no Impulse, no heavy-hitting creatures. And no Etching either. So yeah, this one's pretty low power level, but we're still on the play with Swiss Spear, and then maybe turn 2 play with Fire Phoenix Chick. So there's certainly matchups where this could work out okay, especially if End of Festivities lines up. So this one's borderline. I think I keep, and then just hope to not draw too many more lands. Can always end up channeling Crucible as well. So lead with a Swiss Spear, since we can maybe enable Prowess next turn already. Okay, opponent blue-red. And a Kumano, so also an aggressive deck. Okay, found an Impulse, that's good. So, could play with fire just to get the extra Prowess trigger, and we'll get to Scry as well. Don't think I want to Impulse on turn 2, since I risk exiling too many expensive cards. So the question really is whether I save play with fire to maybe take out an opposing creature. And since we have End of Festivities to maybe kill the Iconoclasts, I think I'm okay going with play with fire, anti-opponent's face. And then Kumano seems like an okay draw still. Opponent at 13. The Pain Land is also going to make a big difference this game. There's no blue-red fast lands in Standard. And a Ledger Shredder. Okay. That is a pretty big roadblock. Alright, even though it's not pretty, I think we do just fire off our non-creature spells. Opponent will get to connive with a Ledger Shredder, but I can at least offer the trade with Swiss Spear. And by attacking with both, I'm pretty happy if Swiss Spear connects for 4 damage and they eat my Phoenix Chick. Alright, opponent's at 7. And we're on the burn plan now. A Ledger Shredder is gonna keep getting bigger and bigger, so don't have great hopes of attacking past it. Okay, there's the Iconoclasts, like we expected. Can still maybe find another End of Festivities later to clean things up. For now we'll Impulse. And yeah, found some goodies. So if I attack, opponent's most likely chumping either way. Phoenix Chick lets the opponent get the connive from Ledger Shredder again, but I think the 1 damage is worth it. It's actually 2 damage thanks to the +1 counter from Etching. Could be bad if they have a play with fire, since then they kill Chick and can just chump the Swiss Spear. Although at least I'll have to take 1 damage of Shivan Reef. It's gonna be a Consider, so they can still make a chump blocker with Iconoclast. So they'll chump Swiss Spear, take 2 down to 4, and then, yeah, we're just 1 damage away from lethal with a Lightning Strike. Their Shivan Reef essentially doesn't make any colored mana anymore. Lightning Strike takes care of Phoenix Chick. Gets exiled by Etching. And another one on Swiss Spear. Kind of surprised they're going after my creatures when it's not like my creatures were going to be able to attack past all these blockers. They might have been better served going upstairs to close out the game a little bit faster. But yeah, we're going to have to top deck either way, and we sure did. A Lightning Strike to the face. We'll do it. Awesome. So very close one here against blue-red. But yeah, being on the play made all the difference, and then the Pain Lands also added up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. This hand is not going to be a keep, sadly. No mountains. This is a bit better. So we'll keep, and then what to get rid of is another interesting question. Could curve Swiss Spear into Felden, and then maybe play Kumano. Could also play Kumano into Felden, which isn't bad. And then I could keep End of Festivities as a way to maybe deal 2 with a Warfare out if we're up against a creature deck. And then get rid of the Swiss Spear. And then if Felden takes damage, it can also help hit our land drops. If I don't draw another mountain anytime soon, I might prefer the Swiss Spear over an End of Festivities. But I'm gonna count on our opponent having some creatures that we can kill. And then turn 1 Kumano is never bad. Turn 1 mountain. Yeah, End of Festivities can be quite effective in the mirror match. As we see, turn 1 Phoenix Chick. Scamp is nice too, but I'm still gonna Felden here. More mana efficient, and the counter is more relevant. So Mountain next turn would be great. If not, we can still play a Scamp. Or maybe end the Festivities if our opponent has multiple Phoenix Chicks, and yeah, that's 3 of them. Drew another Festivities, so this seems like an easy choice. Exile them all with the Etching. That's a nice bonus here. Attack for 5. And our opponent explodes. Well, that's a fitting end to this series, as we get to rank up here. Awesome. So yeah, I didn't get to see as much of the Sawblade Scamp as I would have liked in these games, but in my testing it's been pretty good for me, being able to get a little bit of damage in early by just attacking, and then once the opponent presents a few blockers, we can just sit back and start pinging the opponent, hopefully with a Mechanized Warfare out, dealing 2 damage as opposed to 1. So for me, the Scamp has replaced the Epicure in this red deck, even though Epicure has its advantages as well, letting you maybe discard a land in the late game to dig for an extra burn spell. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.